Right now, somewhere in the world, a grown adult is weeping into a jersey because 11 strangers lost a ball game. And somewhere else, someone is watching that happen and thinking, why would anyone care about this? Both of those people are completely normal, but their brains, genuinely, measurably, wired differently. And today, we're going into the actual science of why. Because what's happening under the skull of a diehard sports fan is way more bizarre than you think. And what's happening in the brain of someone who couldn't care less, that's even more interesting. Let's go back about 200,000 years. You're a human. No walls, no weapons, no DoorDash. Your survival depends on one thing, your group. Your tribe feeds you, protects you, keeps predators from eating you in your sleep. And your brain evolved to protect that tribal bond like it was your most precious resource. Because it was. Fast forward to today, predators are gone. The tribe, still hardwired into your neurology, and here's where sports come in. When a fan watches their team, their brain doesn't see 11 strangers in matching clothes. It sees the tribe, and it releases oxytocin, the same bonding hormone that fires when you hug your mother, hold your child, or fall in love. Let that sink in. A football game is triggering the same neurochemical response as love. That's not passion. That's biology hijacking your emotions using a ball and some jerseys as props. But here's the question nobody asks. What happens in the brain of someone who watches that same game and feels absolutely nothing? Here's where it gets genuinely fascinating. Inside every sports fan's brain during a game, dopamine is firing constantly. Not in big floods, in tiny, rapid microbursts, every play, every possession, every near miss. Will they score? Will they fumble? Will they win? That uncertainty, that's the key ingredient. Because dopamine doesn't fire when you get the reward. It fires in anticipation of maybe getting it. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. It's the same mechanism that makes slot machines so devastatingly addictive. You don't win every time, you win sometimes, unpredictably. And that unpredictability, that's the drug. fMRI studies confirm it. Watching your team activates the same neural reward circuits as gambling. The brain genuinely cannot distinguish between my team might score and this slot machine might pay out. Now, people who don't care about sports, their dopamine system simply doesn't recognize vicarious competition as a reward signal. And here's where it gets wild. Research from the University of Chicago suggests this might be genetic. Specific variations in dopamine receptor genes can actually predict how much a person cares about watching competitive sports. Read that again. Your complete indifference to the Super Bowl might be written in your DNA. You were never going to care, not because you're different from other fans, because you literally cannot experience sports the way they do. Here's something that will completely change how you see sports fans forever. Pay attention. Next time a fan talks about a game, if their team wins, we won. If their team loses, they lost. Did you catch that? The pronoun switches depending on the outcome. Psychologists have an actual name for this. BIRGing, basking in reflected glory. When the team wins, the fan's brain absorbs that victory as their own. Their self-esteem literally rises. When the team loses, the brain creates distance. Suddenly, it's they, not we, who failed. It's the brain protecting the ego in real time, and it's completely automatic. Most fans don't even notice they're doing it. Now think about what this means for someone who doesn't follow sports. Their self-concept doesn't shift based on what 11 strangers did on a field last Sunday. Their identity isn't outsourced to an external outcome they have zero control over. Psychologists describe this as more stable self-esteem. Not better, not worse. Just not dependent on whether a ball went through a hoop. Here's the plot twist. Research actually shows sports fans often score higher on certain empathy measures. How? Because they spend hours genuinely caring about strangers, feeling real emotion for people they've never met, suffering when those people suffer, celebrating when those people succeed. That's a form of emotional exercise. So why don't non-sports people feel that same pull toward athletes? It's not a lack of empathy. It's empathy allocation. We all have a finite emotional bandwidth. People who don't follow sports tend to redirect that bandwidth toward people in their personal lives, toward social causes, toward creative work, toward ideas. A 2021 study found that people with low sports interest scored significantly higher on openness to experience and appreciation of art, beauty, and abstract thinking. They're getting the same emotional payoff, meaning connection, transcendence, but through completely different inputs. Art, music, deep conversations, nature, writing, discovery. The destination is the same. The road is just completely different. Here's the deepest reason: sports fans and non-sports people genuinely cannot understand each other. It comes down to where you find meaning. Sports at their core are narrative machines. The underdog who shouldn't win, but does. The dynasty fighting to stay on top. The rival teams. The impossible comeback. The career-ending injury. The redemption arc. It's a story with real stakes, real outcomes, and genuine unpredictability. And for millions of people, that story creates profound meaning. But for people who don't connect with sports, they look at that same story and think, why would I emotionally invest in something I cannot affect, performed by people who don't know I exist in a game that changes nothing about my actual life? And here's the uncomfortable truth. They're not wrong, but neither are the fans. It's two different answers to the same human question. Where do I find my story? Where do I find something worth caring about? One group finds it in a championship run. The other finds it in a book, a relationship, a creative project, a scientific breakthrough. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who spent his career studying peak human experience, found that flow states can be triggered by almost any activity. For some people, it's the final minutes of a tied game. For others, it's literally anything else. The state is the same. The trigger is personal. Let's be honest for a second. For some people, not caring about sports isn't purely neurological. Sometimes it's personal. Maybe you felt excluded from sports culture growing up. Maybe you were the kid who got picked last. Maybe the aggressive, tribal energy around sports made you uncomfortable. Maybe you watched adults lose their minds over a game and quietly decided, that's not who I want to be. And that choice, conscious or not, shaped your identity. Indifference can be a boundary. It can be a statement. It can be a protection. And sometimes, honestly, it's just that you find it boring. And that's the most valid reason of all. Let's put it all together, because this is the part that might actually surprise you. People with low sports interest tend to show less us versus them thinking, less automatic hostility toward people outside their group, higher openness to experience, more curiosity, more creativity, more comfort with ambiguity, more stable self-esteem, less dependent on external outcomes, higher direct engagement in their own pursuits rather than parasocial investment in others. Different empathy allocation, not less empathy, just directed differently. And here's something quietly profound. People who don't follow sports often report feeling more present in their own lives, not because sports fans are distracted, but because non-sports people have never outsourced their emotional energy to someone else's story. They're fully immersed in their own. There's something quietly powerful about that. So here's what I want you to take away from this. If you don't care about sports, you're not broken. You're not boring. You're not missing some fundamental human experience. Your brain's reward system is calibrated differently. Your tribal instincts fire differently. Your empathy lands somewhere else, and your meaning comes from somewhere else. That's not a flaw. That's a feature. The next time someone says, "Did you see the game?" and you feel absolutely nothing, remember, you're not outside the human experience. You're just playing a different game, one where you're the main character. If this made you think differently about how your brain works, stick around. Next, we're going into why the quietest people in the room are often processing reality on a completely different level, and why that might be the most powerful cognitive advantage you've never been told about.